What's going on, everyone, and welcome to Method in the Madness. This is a podcast that not only delves deep into design and creativity, but also leadership, productivity, and all things personal development. We are at episode 16, where I get to sit down with Loral Quinn, who is the CEO and co founder of the startup Sustainably. And if you've never heard of Sustainably, it is a fintech platform which allows you to round up your space change and donate it to a charity of your choice, enabling you to change the lives of many people with all your daily transactions when you're buying your morning coffee and all sorts. So I love the idea behind Sustainably, and I reached out to Laura a few weeks ago, who very kindly took some time out of her busy Friday to sit with me to chat about anything and everything there is about Sustainably. Laura takes us through her career journey thus far and how she actually arrived at the idea of Sustainably, as well as all the kind of different steps and processes involved in terms of getting it off the ground. Um, Laura also tells us a bit about what it's like to co-found and run a company with her daughter Isho, which is a pretty unique situation, I'm sure you can imagine. Laura also gives us a bit of a glimpse into the world of running a startup, the daily stresses and hurdles, but also the significant challenges in general that female founders are faced with. Laura had some pretty kind of shocking statistics around the percentage of female founders that get funding in comparison to those that are male, and we discussed that in kind of good detail as well. And finally, Laura also teases us about the future of the product and what is on the horizon for Sustainably, which I won't give away, but sounds pretty exciting. And this episode of the podcast is also brought to you by Dinghy. And what is Dinghy? Dinghy is insurance for freelancers by freelancers. And they're on a mission to make insurance cheaper, faster, and most importantly, fairer. Their groundbreaking approach offers flexible, pay as you go business insurance exclusively for freelancers, which is all done through their simple and slick app. And with that, you can get insurance that can be turned up or down. It can be turned on or off 24/7, which actually means that you only pay for the coverage you need rather than tons of coverage that you don't need. It's charged down to the second and billed in arrears. There's absolutely no fees or admin charges, and you can get a simple quote within 40 seconds, and you can have your policy up and running within 2 minutes, which is absolutely awesome. Their insurance is not only tailored specifically for freelancers, but Dinghy also support an array of freelancer groups and charities with the aim of improving freelancing and the world in general. So please visit the following link today and you can get your quote in seconds. So head over to getdinghy.com/MITM. That's GETDINGHY.com/MITM. They're a fantastic bunch of people over there. And like I said, it's not just for creatives. If you're a freelance podcaster, a freelance hairdresser, you'll be able to get coverage through these guys as well. So by all means, check it out. And now, without much further ado, please welcome Loral Quinn to Method in the Madness. Laurel, thank you very much for coming on the show. I really appreciate you having me at the WeWork offices on a Friday, nonetheless. So I really appreciate your time.
Great to be here, and thanks for inviting me. I'm looking forward to it.
Don't be silly. You are the CEO of Sustainably, which, if those of you who don't know, it's a service which allows you to round up your spare change and purchases and then donate it to a charitable cause of your choice, which is an awesome idea. But just to kind of jump straight in, I suppose, could you tell us a little bit about your journey before this? How you arrived at the idea of Sustainably and also the journey of Sustainably thus far.
Sure. So I've had a long and varied career. I've worked in lots of different industries for smaller amounts of time than I did laterally in the financial services industry. But I worked in a charity, in the fashion industry, in the music industry, and then in financial services.
It feels like the wrong order.
I know it is, isn't it? And then kind of a tech startup. So. Probably most relevant to what I'm doing now was that I was working in an investment company where I set up the digital team and then helped scale that company from 6 to 30 countries in 10 years, which was quite a sort of big growth trajectory. And then managing teams in different parts of the world. and digital marketing in those different countries as well. So that for me was quite a big challenge, working in that industry and kind of, I guess, transforming parts of it.
Yeah, sure.
And then laterally I was advising the board on digital transformation across the entire business. And that gave me loads of different, I guess, skills and experience and a lot of autonomy. I had a really good team that I was working with, but obviously lots of challenges of working in what became a large organization, and was in multiple countries, and I guess lots of different priorities. So I did enjoy it, and it was a really big challenge, and we managed to achieve quite a lot. But latterly, towards the end of kind of that time working there, I think I was just having maybe a midlife crisis. I was like, what am I doing with my life? And I had been doing a lot of research for the transformation role, and there was lots and lots of inspirations. So at that time, and I think roundups is not a new thing. You've been able to round up your savings in your bank accounts for many, many years. But the idea of creating a platform that enabled you to have an impact in a small way every single day, and getting the businesses that you work for and the retailers that you buy from involved in that, like an ecosystem, was kind of the idea for Sustainably. Essentially was to kind of create a simple way, well, lots of different simple ways that you could actually do good.
Yeah.
So Roundups is just one of the products that we've got at the moment, and there's a roadmap of other products. And the inspiration for it was initially Acorns Investing, which rounded up your spare change to your investment portfolio, and then things like Tom's Shoes, where you buy something, you do something good, and Pokemon Go, so you could interact with your environment. And that's kind of what we're creating at Sustainably, is a variety of things that just are, I guess, have an element of gamification and rewards, and are just all about friction, removing friction from doing good, and aligning that to the UN Sustainable Development Goals. And it was kind of one of those things that I didn't think I would ever do, because I just kind of started to write this business plan, and it kind of just morphed and morphed. I'd done this Google Squared course, which I thought was really good. If you get a chance, you might have a look at it. But it was all about disruptive innovation, and I'm quite a sort of, I like to challenge myself, and I like to push myself and learn and all this kind of stuff. So I had this business idea, and it was after I'd done that, I had this idea, and it just kept coming back to me. And I thought, why don't I try something, like use my skills to do something good that I am really truly passionate about. And my daughter Aishel, she was working in ethical retail at the time, and I had all these post-it notes on the kitchen wall, and she just started like putting her like ideas, and it just became this thing. And we suddenly, next thing, we were pitching in to get into this accelerator, and we were like, if we get in, will we just do it? And we were like, yes. So we ended up quitting our jobs and going.
So were you kind of, sorry to interject, were you kind of thinking it was going to be like a part-time gig, at first, or was it, or were you just kind of going in blind just to go, see what happens?
I don't know. I don't know what the hell we were thinking. Like, we were just like, I think we just wanted to try it, and because we both felt like there's something here. Like, let's give it a try. And to get in, we went to the RBS accelerator thinking we'll get all this data that we need, because we were going to build it using all the transaction data, and it'll be done in 6 months. And it didn't kind of work out like that. So, but nevertheless, we kind of did that. Aishel is really creative, and she did all the user journeys and all the design work for the original concept. And that was, I guess, for us to show, like, this is what it does, this is how it's going to work. And then we ended up getting some money to fund the first version of it.
Cool.
Which that was the thing that we needed. So that took us a little longer to get the money than we thought. But we have a product in the market, so we're doing something right. And we have users, and we're supporting some really good causes. So the plan is to just now scale that as quickly as we can with a lot of the the partners that we're planning to work with
Sure.
next year. So next year will be the really big year for us, I think, because we've now got the team in place. And so yeah, it's been a crazy roller coaster.
Yeah.
But if you don't push yourself and do put yourself out of your comfort zone, then you kind of, you're not going to transform the world, and that's kind of what it's all about.
Yeah. No, absolutely.
Yeah.
That's super exciting. Yeah, you mentioned there you obviously started Sustainably with your daughter. I love my family very much, and we get on like a house on fire. I would never want to work with any of them though. Uh, so what's that like in terms of a dynamic working with your daughter? Had you done anything like that before, so you knew it was going to kind of work? And kind of how do you separate your like family life from business life now? Being
Yeah, to be honest, I never thought I'd work with Aishel. It was just not even something that crossed my mind. It just happened to happen. And for us, our perspective, we have a very unique relationship, I think, because there is no bullshit. It's kind of very straight to the point. If somebody thinks someone else is doing something crazy, they're like, no way, that's not happening. This is the reason why. Let's debate it. Let's get it out. And just, it's can be pretty full on, but
yeah,
it's also really good. And I couldn't work with any of my family. There's no way. But obviously, I'm working with Aishel, and that's sort of a different relationship. But
yeah,
for us, it works really well because she has completely different skill set to me. She kind of manages all the product and engineering side of the business, and
right.
she's very good at all of that stuff. And then I manage all the partnerships and the investment and all that kind of stuff. And I kind of maybe I'm sort of hopefully I'm all right at that.
Seems to be
And
doing not too badly so far.
yeah, so I think that those kind of complementary skills, and then we've got amazing people in the team, which for us to kind of get the team that we have is amazing, and we wouldn't be able to do it without them. So we really have developed a really great team that are really behind the mission, but also have the really great skills that really can move the dial. So that to me is brilliant. But I think I personally would not be able to do it without Aishel because she's such a core part of what we're doing, and it's kind of very interesting to like reflect back on it and think, how did it actually happen? Because I don't think either of us would have ever thought we would work together, but it kind of sort of just happened.
Naturally happened, kind of
Yeah,
organically.
yeah,
That's cool.
exactly. Yeah.
I can imagine, like, since it's obviously become a successful project rather than one that just took a nosedive,
Yeah.
it's probably brought you guys closer together in terms of your relationship, or
I mean, we still have there's obviously still times when you're like,
oh, obviously family.
you know what I mean. But we're really close, and I think we will always be close. But we sometimes are tearing each other's hair out, and
Yeah.
not like in real life. But
No,
what I mean?
no.
But I think it's just obviously being in a startup is a high pressure environment, but we both are able to cope with it, and we both know when to like not poke the bear or whatever, and irritate each other even further. So, and it's good to have a co-founder to run ideas or even to just like offload onto. Because I don't think you can do this type of thing on your own unless you have a really great team around you. But to go through it with someone is that's kind of what kind of you need. So
Yeah, I was reading a blog the other day it was on Medium, and I'm awful at remembering names of things and things like that. It was a very cool app. That's all I can remember. But he was discussing about basically how lonely being a CEO and a co-founder by himself, being a founder and a CEO by himself is like it's a very lonely experience because, yes, you have your team, but if you're like the sole person that started the company, then it would be quite a lonely experience, I'd imagine. So it's obviously something that haven't had to experience with
yeah,
Sustainably.
I think you can still feel lonely when you're a co-founder because there's just so much pressures, so it's not necessarily, obviously being a solo founder must be very hard,
Yeah.
but I think it's still, you still have so much stuff that you have to work through your own self, that's why you need advisors and, all these kind of amazing people that you do kind of benefit from their knowledge along the way because it's very tough. Yeah.
What were I suppose, from you having the idea Sustainably and the post-it notes were up on the wall in the house to quitting your job? which is obviously and the income's no longer coming in on a regular basis and things like that. What were that kind of steps or process involved in that, and how long was that process taking?
Yeah, I think the bit which was the challenge, obviously the challenge is when you have the idea, you need to get the product out there. So, and you need to validate and make sure that, you're building something good and all that stuff. So, for us to get funding to get the team, we kind of went to all the tech meetups and tried to get team members there. But we ultimately ended up working with a small agency that kind of built the MVP for us. And that was really good for us because they were excellent at kind of building that initial version that we could then use that and put it out into the market and all that kind
Sure.
of stuff. So that was really good, but it took us a while to get that bit of funding, and that was a challenge. The first hurdle is to get something in the market, get people using it, and then get more money to build an actual thing that you can scale.
Of
So
course.
the way that kind of we went about that was getting that first version and then promoting it the hell out of it. So we went to Finovate in New York and demoed it
Okay, yeah.
at that big conference, and we were at the airport thinking, what the hell's going on, like, as and we just went and demoed this thing, what are we doing here? And then we got like this email when we were sitting in the departure lounge saying we won best of show. And
Oh,
so
wow.
that was quite a good moment, because when you think that was like demoing to like 4,000, 3,000 people,
Yeah.
and then there's a panel of judges and they kind of say whether it's good enough or not good or whatever. So that was good, and I think it kind of just started to then like pick up. So we won this competition called Accelerate Her, which led us to meet the co-founder of Skyscanner, and then he put a little bit of angel money in, and then we pitched to get into the Creator Awards at WeWork, which we then won that, and we got some money from WeWork. And but it's kind of just from there that we then were able to build the team and get a scalable version of the product into market. And that's kind of where we're at now. So I think it's been, there's things that you have to do along the way to get recognition, to get anybody to take notice, because it's a really competitive, crowded market. And then just leveraging as many different opportunities to get visibility so that you can get to where your next step is.
Yeah, sure.
So at the moment, we're just going to be working with Nesta on they've put out an open banking sort of challenge, and we're one of the companies that's been selected for that, which will give us access to the team that helped elect Obama,
Yes.
get Obama elected. The sort of creative marketing
Sure.
bits of that. So that will be great in terms of growing our visibility and getting the partnerships in place that we want to focus on for next year. So that's kind of where we're at now. But there was always a challenge, and it's just kind of getting up every day and hitting looking towards those next milestones and realizing how to hack your way through it, and how do we get to this next level, and like learning from people who have done it and finding out new things every day.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah.
I can imagine there's probably a new, for everything that you solve, there's probably
Yeah.
3 other challenges that come off the back of it or something like that,
Yeah, exactly.
You mentioned obviously investment as well. Investment is a huge part of any startup
Yeah.
business and the growth of it. Um, I can't, this is probably a swooping generalization, number one for the podcast, but I can't imagine there's not too many people that can't get behind the idea sustainably. It's obviously a very, like you say, spare change rounding. That concept maybe isn't perhaps new, but helping make change every single day, can't understand anyone not being behind that. But what are some of the kind of common hurdles, when you are pitching for investment and trying to gain more investment? What are some of the kind of hurdles that you frequently come into?
Yeah, I think there is obviously when you're pitching for bigger amounts of money, there is much more validation. So kind of, I guess they're expecting a lot, because investors are not typically investing in hundreds and hundreds of businesses. They have a really limited, maybe like 10 or 12 investments that they're making a year, or something like that. So you have to be really exceptional. But it's really interesting that we talk about this subject, because the statistics for female founders to get money are still really low, and I'm kind of was doing a bit more research into why this is. And
Mhm.
PitchBook published last year that I think it was 1 pence in every £1 goes to female founders, and then in the US I think it's still 2% of VC money goes to female founders, so it's still really, really low. And I just had heard about this TED talk by Dana Kanzi, so like you should look up. It's called "The Real Reason Female Entrepreneurs Get Less Funding," and she actually looked at all the TechCrunch pitches, female and male, and did all this analysis on the why were female founded businesses getting less money than the male founded businesses when they were on a similar level. And it was very interesting, the sort of findings from her research were around the she called it implicit she said it's insidious gender bias, like, and that it's completely the way that the questions are asked are completely different for the female founder businesses to the male founder businesses.
Wow.
And she was very much kind of, with all the analysis she did, she came up with these two. She had done this PhD in like some sort of psychology, and there's two different question types, and one was promotion, and which was all around the growth aspects of your business, which was consistently asked to the male founded businesses, and the other one was around prevention, which were all the barriers and why would this not work, were consistently asked to the female founder businesses. And it's the way that that kind of pigeonholes you into a certain type of answer, which then pigeonholes you down a certain type of...
Well, you're naturally talking about a negative thing happening rather than a positive thing happening.
Exactly, which then led to significantly less investment money to those businesses that kept getting asked the prevention question. So it's really, really interesting. So she comes up with some strategies to kind of get around that, which I'm now going to actually use, because it's kind of... But I think it's this whole education piece on if the VCs themselves were actually asking the same questions to both businesses, how much more opportunity would they have to actually get more money, right? Because they're actually investing on a level playing field. Then they're not investing just to the same type of person that they already know. So the more diverse of your portfolio with the ability to scale is going to be massive, right? Because you're not going to miss opportunities. Exactly. So there's benefits in all respects. So I thought that was super, super interesting. But I think, that to me is a really, really massive issue. And it's not just gender diversity, it's diversity across the board. And if you think that a lot of the focus is on male-female gender bias right now, but what about all the other different biases?
Race, religion, sexuality,
it's
whatever.
It's huge. It's absolutely massive, and we need to change that, because the world could be such a better place if there was just more diversity.
It's just so silly when you think about it. Like, why wouldn't you? Like, it's like pre-filtering, so you're only going to be going after the same opportunities all the time, which is never...
It's true. But that's the way that VC a lot of the time work. It's intros.
Yeah.
So you're getting an intro from the other... I mean,
whoever,
to be generalist, it's like you're getting the intro from the other white male that you know already, that's getting the intro from the other white male that they all know already. And that's kind of... that's kind of how it has been. So to change it all up, to shake it all up, to get more people through the, through the whole system to exit, to have those CEOs that then become angels that are female founders or diverse founders from other backgrounds, that brings it all up. And that's kind of where we need to get to. But the whole point is that everybody is biased. And that is the bit that when you think, oh, we shouldn't be, but everybody has a certain bias. And it's kind of trying to break that down to be more conscious about it and understand that, we do need to have more gender, not just gender, but more diversity.
Yeah, across the board. Yeah. How did, well, I don't know, in your prior jobs, maybe you had the experience of, like, obviously presenting and pitching, because most people do these days, but how did you know where to start when you're first pitching for investment, or did you not, or did you use, things like AngelList, or like, I see you've got Cedar's sketchbook. Have you considered ever using like a crowdfunding platform like Cedar's or Crowdcube or anything?
I think it's doing that at the right time. And I think the thing for us is that you have to when you're going to the investors, you have to go at the right time, but you kind of want an element of them, selecting you as well. So if you're on like a Tech Nation or, a program like
Sure.
a London and Partners or We Labs or something like that, you can go and pitch at things where then they will come and ask you, like, come in or let's have a chat or whatever, which is, I guess that is a good approach as well, because you've already been pre-qualified. Because a lot of people will intro you, but maybe it's not the right time, and there's lots of other things going on. So I think it's knowing when is the right time, but also having your short list and maybe trying it out on the long list, and
Yeah.
kind of a lot of different factors, but then coming to that other thing where you kind of want to get sector specialists or something that's relevant to what you're doing. So
Sure.
you do have to do your own research to narrow it down to then know which ones you want to speak to, then which ones are maybe not, that might be invested in your competitors, or and then there's the aspect of, are they just doing a research job on you, so there's lots of different things, and you kind of don't want to waste your time or their time. So I think to get intros is good, but I think to be visible and them come to you is ideal, and but to get the ones that you want and cut out all the ones that you don't want, really. But I know the exact answer? No, because
Yeah.
we are still kind of trying to figure out which ones would be the best for us. Because it might be angels, it might be VCs. We're just trying to put the next bit of the puzzle together right now. So, and it's all about who's going to help you accelerate, and dilution, and lots of other things. So you have to think about a lot of different things, but you don't want to kind of get investors that are not the right investors.
Yeah, of course.
And you have to do a huge amount of due diligence on them. So speak to the companies that they're already invested in, see, what's their experience, speak to the ones that have not done well, as well as the ones that have, and kind of like really learn. And I always speak to people that I know in the ecosystem and say, like, what about these ones? And they will tell you straight. They'll be like, don't touch them with a barge pole, or like, these are good investors. And it's just because the last thing you want to do is enter into a partnership with investors that are just not gonna, like, just gonna
Have
be
your
a
back.
headache. Yeah.
So how did you actually educate yourself about this whole new world and ecosystem of angels versus VCs versus whatever's, and
We've had loads and loads of advisors and help, because you're not doing it. You don't have to do it on your own. That's kind of the best thing about this, because there is a lot of help. So I think it's just getting connected into those networks and learning, and you have to soak it up, and then you have to then filter it to say, right, this is the stuff that I'm going to take on board, because you can't just take on board everything everyone tells you, because you just be, that's dumb.
Yeah.
But and then learning, because through experience as well, because sometimes someone will tell you something and you might not then really realize it in reality until you're actually living it. So a lot of it's experience, but a lot of it's learning from other people, and at which stage or what types of people are going to be involved, and how to get to them. So but yeah, I think it's the more connected into the ecosystem, the faster you get through all that, and getting the right advisors also, the faster you get through all that.
Yeah,
so
I can imagine.
It's definitely the faster you can get through it, all the better, really, to be honest. Yeah.
And would you ever consider using like a public kind of crowdfunding platform, like a Crowdcube or Seedrs, like Monzo have done in the future?
I think so, but you really need an avid sort of following to do that kind of thing. And we're not kind of, we will do it, I think, at some point. But when it's the right time, you have to do it all when it's the right time, really. So I think what Monzo and all that's done is great. So in terms of their crowdfunding.
No, they've done insanely well.
Yeah.
When did you, when was your eureka moment? When did you first realize, like, fuck, this is a good idea, it's going to work? And was that like way before, or was it quite like later on when you actually had like a bit of a MVP product out there?
I mean, I think it comes at various points, because there has to be something else for you to get up for, so for, first of all, the Finovate thing, then kind of getting the various investors and winning certain things, and then getting the product into market, getting really good first of all, charities coming to us and saying, we want this. That's
Yeah.
good validation. And then getting some of the partnerships as well. So I think it kind of has to happen in an ongoing way, because if you're not getting validation, then you shouldn't really be doing kind of what you're doing.
Yeah.
But I think you have to keep learning, and you have to listen to your customers, and you have to take all that feedback on board, because they're the ones that are using this.
Yeah, of
So
course.
kind of a lot of that is making sure that you've got the things in place that you can understand what the customers want, and you are iterating, you are learning, you are testing things and moving the business forward. So it's an ongoing process of
Yeah.
sort of validation. But yeah, we're still early stage. We're still learning. We're still testing. We're still trying new things. So it's an ongoing process. But we're not. We're still right in the heart of all of that, the
Yeah,
thick of
no.
it, and lots of good stuff happening. Yeah.
Yeah, I can imagine. You obviously mentioned the TED Talk there about female CEOs getting funding, and you often, to kind of go back to that for a bit, you often see, well, as a white male, like I obviously can't relate to it in the same way that females can, but when you see on LinkedIn things like L'Oreal or Aston Martin appoints its first ever female CEO as a female CEO, does that just piss you off royally? Like, I can imagine, like, surely you'd rather it's Aston Martin appoints Laurel Quinn rather than Aston Martin appoints its first female CEO. Like, it feels like,
I think it's such big news, though. I mean, and I don't get me wrong, I'm not listening to all that, because I don't even know when half of this happens. But
yeah,
the point is that there's still such a minority. Apparently, there's more Steve CEOs than there are female CEOs, and that's a
what a random fact, but yeah,
that is a fact. And I think the numbers have actually declined in the top businesses. So Fortune 500s went down from 32 female CEOs to 24 last year,
okay,
and FTSE 100 CEOs went from 7 to 6. So it's like, although there's still a tiny
yeah,
minority, like, percentage wise, like, tiny, and it is a big deal. And I think it's all the challenges. If you know that somebody has made it as a female CEO, they have had so much more challenges than the male counterparts. And it's, that to get there is like a hell of a ride. You might have to do 2 or 3 times more work than the male counterparts, in my opinion. And, I think it's just extremely hard. So it is big news. And I think,
but
it's,
I know it's more so like, would the person not rather their name in the headline
I'm
rather
sure
than
they
it?
would, but the thing is, it is big news,
Yeah.
because it is so rare, the dog with the tail on its head type rare. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I just
Do you
saw
know what I
that
mean?
last night
It's
actually.
that's how rare it is, because
Yeah.
that's kind of the statistics. You may as well be a dog with a tail
I
on
don't
its
think
head.
female CEOs and dogs with tails on its head has ever been in the same sentence before, but there you go.
Yeah, that's how rare it is.
World exclusive.
Yeah, world exclusive. The unicorn dog.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a bizarre looking dog. Cute little
Yeah.
dog, but bizarre looking nonetheless.
Yeah.
Pitching for funding and running a business and is a kind of daily grind and struggle for startups. Never mind having, the extra layer of being a female founder on top of that. Like, have you ever walked away from a meeting or an investment pitch or anything like that where you felt like, yeah, they were treating me differently because I was a female? Like, you don't, obviously I'm not expecting you to name drop anyone, but like how real is the problem for yourself?
I definitely think there is issues, and I now am going to be more kind of conscious of that with this new learning of the different types of questions.
Yeah,
So I'm going to
sure.
actually try to like do that in a more conscious way. And when it's kind of like this is a really good one. I forgot about this example, but Ashel reminded me of it recently. So we went in to pitch to these investors, and one of them goes to me, "Oh, your friend can sit here." It was my co-founder, and I was just like, "Fuck off," you know what I mean? But
What
we
a
kind of
huge oversight. I'm sorry, but
it was just, and we just thought to ourselves, we don't care anymore. We're just, let's get out of here as soon as possible. But we kind of like sat through the meeting. But that was just ridiculous. If you think about it, your friend can sit here. Like, I'm going to bring my friend to my investor meeting. Like, come on. I just came with my friend.
Yeah, we'll go Fernando's afterwards.
Yeah,
like...
it's what? Anyway, that was the worst. I definitely, and then, I think when people are calling you girls, that also really gets
Oh,
right
God.
on my nerves. So we've been in a meeting like that as well. So I think people would not treat men like that. So your friend can sit here, So, I think there's definitely things that need to be surfaced up. So, there was actually a really interesting company that I'm going to look up the name of it, but they've actually been doing a piece on if you go to a VC meeting and are treated in a certain way, you can actually now feed it back into this organization. And they have done like a sort of behavior etiquette, not etiquette, but just how you should be behaving in a meeting and educating VCs on it. Because a lot of the times they wouldn't like actually think about some of the things that they're doing that is actually inappropriate.
Yeah.
So
or they're probably not even aware they're doing it,
precisely,
which is probably more worrying.
Exactly. So there's a huge movement towards this whole understanding of the issues that actually are happening, but also being able to report the issues that are happening and to get the issues resolved so that people actually don't have to be in the situations like 500 startups or whatever, where there's, going to meetings and it's all inappropriate, and various other situations which have gone on for years and years and years and needs to end. So, I'm going to look up the name of that company. But again, like really, really interesting education piece for VCs on what is appropriate conduct, a reporting mechanism, and to how to kind of make this a better environment to raise funds in.
I've never been in front of a VC before, so I'm not probably qualified to say this, but I would also imagine, is there an element of when, the VCs are almost like the kind of high hegians because they're the ones that can help you grow with their investment if they do choose to invest you. There's probably a lot of people that wouldn't say, boo to a goose to them, but because they are in that position, like I can't imagine they're getting that like direct feedback as often as, say, Joe Blow in a company would if they were behaving like that, let's say. But I don't know if that's true or not.
I mean, I guess there might be some ego issues. That might be a sort of prevalent thing if you think that you're the god of whatever.
Yeah.
But I mean, ultimately, they have to build the relationship with the startup because they want to make money, right?
Yeah.
And that is kind of, ultimately that's kind of what it is. But I think it's just with all the issues that have happened, there has to be some other level. There has to be a level playing field, and people don't have, shouldn't be going to meetings and being treated in a certain way. So that's kind of just basic, but might not always be. Well, isn't always happening. Let's face it. So.
No, completely. Especially these days where you get CEOs that are still in their teens and things like that. Like that whole world is changing. It's not. You're not getting people who are CEOs becoming CEO at the age of 60 anymore and all this kind of stuff. Like they're so young these days because that's just the way the future is going, So you can't, they can't treat people the way they are, like that they've always been doing anyway.
Yeah, there shouldn't be hierarchy in that way, because people, especially the younger generation, do not get it. Yeah, they're like, what are you talking about? That there's sexism, and I'm like, yeah.
Sustainably is obviously a very much purpose and kind of mission-driven brand and service. And I've always wondered. I was speaking to Jeremy from Power of Life about this when he was on as well. Like, how much do investors care about that? Like, obviously there are investors because they want to make money at the end of the day, but like, how much do they actually care about like the purpose and mission behind what you're doing, and can they get behind that, or is it just more so about numbers and figures?
I think it is a combination of the two, because I definitely think the way that the market is moving is towards more sustainable, more ethical products, and that's the way we need to move as a world. So the natural, movement will be towards more ethical investment. And you see that with the BlackRocks of the world saying that, companies need to take control of what they're doing and actually become more ethical and sustainable in their business practices, and that's where they want to start moving money to. But they have to start growing those companies, because a lot of the companies aren't there isn't the there isn't the number of companies
Yeah,
available
sure.
to make the investments in, because the companies are not
Yeah.
there. So um I think it's twofold. Market demand for products and services that are more ethical and sustainable will drive investor money into more ethical and sustainable
Sure.
companies, but it's a longer term thing. And is there availability across the landscape for them to make all those investments? Probably. They need to make more of them, but they need to help those companies move further faster. So I think there's certain VCs that are focused on impact, but there's also a lot that are focused on sector specific. But impact is now becoming part of that, and I think it will just continue to grow, because it
Yeah.
is where the money will
Yeah, well, like
need to
future
be.
generations are caring more and more about like what they're buying and what they're,
Yeah,
you know,
exactly. It's all consumer driven at the end,
yeah.
but it is money at the end for VCs, because they have to get returns to their investors.
Yeah, of course. What have been some of the biggest lessons from, you've obviously kind of worked in, growing global teams and things like that before, but it's sustainably as a whole, like what are some of the biggest lessons that you've learned?
I think it's all about getting the right team for what you're delivering. And for us, obviously, having a technical and design and product is core.
Hmm.
So getting those team members took us a while to get the right team, but we have a really passionate team and we have a great team. So I think it's continuing to build on that great team and not losing the culture. That'll be key. But the having both neither Aishel or myself are technical, so getting the right technical co-founder in the team,
Hmm.
or technical expertise in the team, that was the biggest challenge for us. But we have really good technical resources now, so it's just continuing to build on all the great team, and the great culture will be the I think the biggest opportunity, but might present a really sort of big challenge to keep that
Yeah.
as we scale. Um, so that will be a really interesting, as a focus for us as we grow, to maintain that culture and the sort of team dynamic.
Yeah. As a designer, I'm curiously interested in the actual kind of design and kind of aesthetic of your product as well. Like a lot of kind of new products and apps and services that you see arrive on the scene are still very ropey and MVP feeling when you first kind of come into contact with them, and there's still things that are broken and clunky, and sustainably isn't that like it's a very rich, very slick, very um aesthetically pleasing product. Uh was the kind of design and all that like important to you guys from day one?
Yeah, I mean, definitely from day one, we had a really big focus on design, because we don't think people will use something that is just not up to design, like
Hmm.
not a great thing.
Yeah,
It has
user
to,
experience.
design is a massive part of that. So we've been lucky enough to work with a really great designer to for the MVP, but we now actually have our own creative director who is excellent and does all the user interface design. So that is a really core to what we're delivering, because it's all about having that brand and like resonating with that brand, and the brand makes you feel good, and that you can relate to it. So
Yeah.
we've put a lot of effort into that, and we'll continue to develop and evolve it. As everything is an ongoing evolution, and we want to do a lot of things with the branding, and the whole user experience will evolve. But it is core to what we're doing, and we really strongly believe that
Hmm.
the right user interface and getting the right designers to work with us is sort of core to that.
Yeah, and like going on from that, then you're not a design background. You've worked in kind of digital before, but not maybe so much digital product. But how did you actually get started? Because you were discussing earlier, you and Ash were kind of talking about user flows and the actual kind of user journey. Is that something that she had experience in, or were you just kind of like faking it till you make it, and or did you kind of get a designer or UX or you involved early?
Yeah, Aishel did a course at Clan on user experience
Okay.
design, and she was a really into design and really good at designing. So she just taught herself Sketch and did loads and loads of.
Oh,
She
awesome.
created the whole product first, like designs for that. But we actually have a user experience designer in the team as well as user interface designer. So the whole user journeys are detailed, mapped out, user with documentation goes to all the engineers as to what are all the interactions and all this kind of stuff. It's extremely detailed, the process we go through
Yeah.
before we build anything, and that is, that's just the process that we go through, and it is a really robust, slick process that
Mm.
nothing goes to engineering before there's the whole user experience design and user interface designs are complete. So that's just part of our the way that we work in terms of how do we get through things to, like, from idea to production to live, so
Yeah, yeah. So you kind of prefer it to be obviously quite polished
yeah.
rather
Uh-huh.
than because like there's so many
Uh-huh.
obviously MVP kind of culture
Yeah.
is obviously very big in startups, and it's just
Uh-huh.
like get it out there, get it like
Yeah.
least amount of effort with the
Uh-huh.
maximum amount of kind of
It
data.
still has to
And
look good though.
yeah,
So that was always the focus for us. Even if it's just really basic, it still has to look good. So, regardless of what is the actual functionality, it has to look good. So the more and more stuff that we're doing, even if it was really basic to start with, as we add features and deploy new code every single day, it still has to look good and work to, like, the standards that we're putting in place. And that's just been the way that
yeah.
we've kind of always worked.
Yeah, it's just it's nice to hear that though, because I think there's a lot of startups that don't follow that, and then you can kind of see the proof is in the pudding at the end of the day. Like your, you know, site and experience, it doesn't feel like it's just a team of what did you say, like nine
We've
or
got
ten people now,
8 in the
eight
core team,
people.
and then
Yeah,
various people that work.
like you think there's a team of
Yes.
people behind that,
Yeah.
but there's not. So clearly it shows in the work at the end of the day.
Mhm.
Um, what were some of the kind of biggest technical feasibility, because you've got it's a unique kind of, I suppose, service in the sense of like you need obviously to get users interested, but you obviously need to get charities interested, and you obviously need permissions from banks as well to kind of want to be able to kind of get involved. Like, what were some of the kind of biggest feasibility challenges that you had to overcome?
I think it's all about the data that we're getting from the banks, because a lot of it isn't normalized. There's lots of different, I guess, variations going on there. So that has been a challenge, and we've put a lot of other fixes on top of all of the data that's coming in so that we can do what we want with the product. So that's
Sure.
been a sort of ongoing development. And then I guess it's more around the data volume, the customer experience, and making sure that we're categorizing all the transactions and doing what we say we're going to do with all of that. So to create the best product experience and onboarding experience, and then creating a really slick onboarding experience for the good causes as well, so they can benefit from this. So it's all a work in progress, but we do, work closely with the customers, both the end customer and the good causes themselves, to make sure that what we're building is the best
Yeah.
experience, and we'll continue to do that. But I think it's just the ongoing challenge of data volumes and making sure that everything works and is at the speed that we need it to be as well, so that there's that really slick experience, and as we add in more products and services, making sure that all that kind of ties in nicely together
Yeah.
and enables you to really track your impact. So we work a lot on the data science side of things. We've got a data science team, and we'll be growing that, as well as the engineering team, to
Cool.
make sure that all the visualizations and all the impact, that you can really understand what's happening there. And that's all new stuff. So we're really excited about all the sort of machine learning we're going to put in. So that is all interesting and exciting, and just lots and lots of new challenges ahead. But we get new challenges every day. So
Yeah, quite right.
yeah, so it's always it's great to kind of have the team, like, kind of working through all the sort of problems, and they're well up for the types of challenges that we're focused on.
Yeah, definitely. How's the app and kind of service been received by the partners and the kind of charitable organizations so
Yeah,
far?
so we're actually just working with some really big charities at the minute that are going to start pushing it out to lots and lots of thousands of their supporters. So that
Amazing.
should be really good. And lots of big stuff coming up with like sleep in the park, social
Yeah,
bike
yeah,
stuff. So we can hopefully get all of those people that are at the event to then kind of support social bite after
sure.
with in other ways. So there's lots of exciting stuff that we're working on, and a lot of that is kind of creating those visual assets and all the getting the brand story out there so people know kind of what we're doing and how it's going to benefit in the causes that they actually care about. So yeah, I think it's an exciting time. There's lots of stuff we've got planned, lots of stuff happening next year, because obviously this part of the year has been kind of focused on getting the product right as we've added in all the other banks. So we're now connected to 14 banks, and then figuring out what are the next massive big steps forward that we need to take for next year. So we've been working with students at Edinburgh Uni and Glasgow Uni, both of them on different strategies, and we'll be
Mm,
leveraging a lot of the insights that come out of them in the next few weeks as
that'd
well.
be
So
cool.
really exciting times ahead, and yeah, just excited to get to create lots more impact through the
Yeah.
products that we're pushing out.
I
Yeah.
can imagine like for the charities, it's kind of like a win-win for them. They're they're probably all interested. There's probably just more like logistical stuff in terms of getting set up on the platform. Is that like a barrier, or is it like have some charities not been wanting to get involved?
No, I think it's definitely an interesting thing for them, because we are creating a product that will make giving easier,
Yeah.
and then open up new opportunities for new customer groups that it's all about giving without friction and all that kind of stuff. So it's definitely something they're interested in, and the ones that we've got on the platform are actively going to be pushing it and actively getting new income streams from it. So yeah, I think it's all positive, and just there'll be lots of interesting campaigns in the new year that we're starting to do much more activations with some of the partners, and I think it will just continue to evolve and get bigger and better as we release more of the products into the market. So
Yeah.
it's exciting times.
Busy times as
Busy
well, by the sounds
times.
of it.
Busy times. Yeah, every day is a busy day. So it's good. Yeah, good.
Oh
Good.
wow.
Yeah,
Like
lots of
where
interesting stuff.
you know, do you have a particular goal or anything in mind that you guys are like kind of plugging towards at the moment, or like where do you hope to kind of take it in the future?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's so many things that we're actually just figuring out right now at the moment in terms of the partnerships. Which ones are we gonna activate first, and how are we gonna what do we want to do with that particular partnership? Because we've got a lot of opportunities to work with certain partners that we're actually just in
Mm.
the process of finalizing right now. So some of them are actually huge, and I guess it depends on the outcomes of some of these big conversations that we're having. So
Yeah.
there's a lot of exciting stuff that I can't tell you about right now, but
That
I hope in the next couple of
could be in part
weeks,
two.
yeah, hopefully we'll have we've got some really big meetings coming up in the next few weeks, and we'll figure out what's the biggest things that we're going to be doing next year. But the vision for Sustainably is to generate billions. It's not like a small little side project that we want to kind of just do a couple of good things and we'll be done. We actually
Yeah.
want to really scale this, and we feel like we're building a platform that can really significantly improve the outcomes of what we're actually doing on a day-to-day basis in the world. So that's kind of the reason it's called Sustainably. It's actually to actually have a big impact just through living your daily life and actually getting involved in things that you didn't necessarily know about, and actually being able to have a positive impact, but to understand
Yeah,
that you're
yeah.
actually having that impact. So watch this space, and
Mhm.
just keep it. Sign up. Sustainably.co. We'll be creating native apps, releasing them soon. So
Awesome.
lots of stuff happening, and yeah, lots of exciting partnerships for next year, hopefully.
Yeah, no, that sounds absolutely amazing. More power to you as well. Uh, I've never ran my own, like this podcast is the closest thing to a business that I've ever ran in my entire life, and it's stressful enough. But running something like Sustainably must consume you 24/7 almost, and I can imagine I find it always hard to switch off from work, but when it's like a living and breathing thing, it must be even harder. Like, do you have any, like, how do you switch off? Do you find it hard to switch off? Or are you quite good at kind of turning that?
Sometimes I think sometimes it's hard. It depends what the challenge is, So, I guess when you're going through a process of investment or other stuff, there might be some stuff that you're just really that you end up staying up till midnight to do something, or that you've got a partnership discussion. You need to get this thing done, this proposal, or there's something. But um, for me, I think it's about trying to maintain some sort of balance. People always talk about it. It's a marathon, not a sprint. You
Mm.
can't really burn out. And I have actually decided to set time aside to just not do work, because you actually need to just get like fresh, like
Yeah.
air and kind of just have a bit
Thinking
of
time.
thinking time, exactly, to kind of go and reflect. And personal reflection is important. So you have to reflect what has worked well, what's not worked so well, what have I learned from that, kind of just rather than charging like through the
As
rest
well
of
as
it.
like what have you business wise, but also personally, what have you
Yeah,
learned as well, about
exactly.
yourself?
And how can you help the rest of the team if, because it's a collaborative approach. So I think there's a lot more that I need to do to kind of bring that whole thing into balance. But I have tried to go to the gym, I'm trying to be more like doing that on a really regular basis, and like I maybe just take it a little bit too far, like go 6 times a week or something, but and do 2 classes back to back, because I am a
Yeah.
little bit of extremist, but there's that kind of thing. So I'm been trying to, when I'm not traveling, trying to make a really big effort to do that because it keeps me sane, like mind, body, and soul.
I'm the complete same.
And then walking the dogs, although they're a bit disabled, so it's kind of
Oh.
like one's got a buggy, but that's
Oh.
again just trying to make sure. Well, they need walked, so
Yeah.
you can't just not walk them. And then listening to like podcasts, I think, is a good sort of escape. So there's ways ones that are business related, but also ones that are not business related, more just about like your mindset and
Yeah.
like you're not, happy,
Yeah.
being happy, and then hanging out with your friends and family. Obviously, you can't do everything all the time, so it's just trying to like create some time for that. And the good old box set of something or other.
Yeah. No, it's kind of fun. Like when you talk about booking out time in your calendar, I kind of first I read it's one of my favorite books now about radical candor by Kim someone Scott, I think, who was like ex Apple and ex Google, just like talking about one of the most important lessons that she learned was once a week booking out at least 4 straight hours in your calendar just to kind of have time to think. Because if you don't, somebody will fill it with something,
It's true.
uh,
Yeah.
or you'll fill it with something
Hmm.
that's seems like it's kind of related to work, but not. And kind of getting in the habit of doing that has been a hard thing for me, but it's so beneficial. Just
Hmm.
as you say, just press pause. Like you can't run at full steam all week. You'll just
Yeah.
absolutely burn yourself out. So
Yeah. And I think traveling can be really sort of take it out of you as well. So I think for me, it's kind of having a handle on that because I set myself that I'm not going to travel within the hours of X and Y and immediately broke it the next day or something. So
yeah,
it's kind of just being conscious that you do have to maintain your own like health and well-being mentally and physically, and in order to get through this. And it's not just an endless sprint. You have
yeah.
to you have to take it.
Because I find like when I first started trying to like block out that time, it was almost like the guilt of, oh, I'm skiving or I'm not doing something productive or I'm not contributing towards whatever. But you just need to learn that it's not guilty. It's healthy if
Yeah,
anything. But
exactly. You've got to be healthy. You've got to be healthy to keep going. Yeah.
yeah, and to wrap up, we have a couple of listener questions. Like I said, before we went on air, so we have two. One of which is from Rachel in Aberdeen, who has asked, "Do you have a favorite female CEO that you would admire and why?"
Hmm. Do I have a favorite female CEO? I mean,
If not, you can just say
yeah,
any CEO.
I mean, do you know who I really do admire? Leslie Eccles. So she's one.
Yeah,
I'll put her on there because she's the first one that sprung to mind, and I think that whole FanDuel journey is just incredible, and what they did with the marketing machine was just insane. Like with
yeah,
all the sort of making that become what
it now is.
that whole sort of machine. But um, I think that she obviously there's a whole heap of learnings from that. So
Yes.
and yeah, I think who else? Yeah, that's the only one that springs to mind right now. But
No.
look at her journey. Yeah.
No, there's a good book about FanDuel as well.
Yeah, I just listened to that on a podcast because I don't read anymore. I just listen to things. So
Yeah,
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 billion-dollar fantasy.
yeah. It's certainly an interesting business case.
Yeah, I know.
But
Yeah,
that's for another podcast,
yeah,
perhaps. Try and get one of those guys on.
yeah,
And John, however you pronounce it, apologies if it's yourself, from London has asked, do Sustainably partner with businesses? I assume that probably means
yeah.
payments rather than, obviously you partner with businesses.
We
That's
will.
the business model.
Well, yeah, we'll be doing much more next year on that. Yeah,
Ah,
yeah,
awesome.
definitely
That'll
is
be
a
cool to
focus.
see.
Yeah, yeah,
I can imagine that's where probably huge growth will take place as well.
yeah,
So that'd be really exciting.
yeah.
Laurel, thank you very much for coming on Method in the Madness. I really appreciate you taking the time out
Thanks
of
for
your busy
inviting me.
schedule.
Yeah,
But yeah, no, let's
good to chat to you.
wrap up with a promo. I signed up to Sustainably about 3 weeks ago, and you can literally sign up in less than 2 minutes. It is the simplest sign up journey. You can either round up your spare change, you can just make a monthly donation, you can do all sorts, and there's obviously more coming, which obviously Laurel's hinting to as well. So, you can limit what you donate as well if you're afraid that if your spending habits are anything like mine and you think you're gonna be donating hundreds of pounds per month, you can limit it as well. But obviously, don't be stingy. It's for charities at the end of the day. So, it's all for an array of fantastic causes. So, sustainably.co, head over, sign up, spread the word, do whatever you can to help these guys because it's an amazing cause. But no, thank you very much for coming on. So, to wrap up, as per usual, folks, head over to the website, the mitmpodcast.com, to find out more about the show. Head to a podcast platform, hit subscribe, and that'll make sure you get notified when a new episode goes up. If you are enjoying the show, hit the stars, leave a review, share it with a friend, send an email, whatever you want to do. You have no idea how much all that contributes and helps grow the show. And also, please get in touch. The listener questions are really, really good. Seem to be going down a storm as well. So, always keen to hear from everyone. Send me an email on methodinthemadnesspodcast@gmail.com. Send a tweet, a LinkedIn message, email, whatever, and don't be shy. So, that's it from us here. Thank you very much for listening, and I hope you found some method in the madness.